The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like it had done for the past 20 years. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the defense station and watched the golden light spread across the green fields. He sipped his coffee and thought about how peaceful everything looked. The farmers were already working in their fields. Children ran between the dome buildings where food grew in special tanks. This was home to over 2 million people who had traveled far from Earth to build a new life. Jake commanded 40 Marines who protected the colony. It was not a big force, but New Haven had never needed much protection. The colony grew food for 3 nearby star systems. Everyone knew them as peaceful farmers who never bothered anyone. The biggest problems Jake usually faced were equipment breakdowns and the occasional fight between drunk colonists. The alarm started screaming at exactly 9 in the morning. Jake dropped his coffee cup and ran to the control room. His lieutenant, Amy Foster, was staring at the sensor screens with wide eyes. Her hands shook as she pointed at the display. "Sir, we have 17 large ships coming out of hyperspace," she said. "They are huge and moving toward us fast." Jake looked at the screen and felt his stomach drop. The ships were like nothing he had ever seen. They looked like giant crystals that sparkled with their own light. Each one was bigger than any human warship. They moved in perfect formation like they had done this many times before. "Try to contact them," Jake ordered. "Maybe they just want to talk." Amy tried every frequency they had. She sent messages in 12 different languages, including the few alien languages humans had learned. The crystal ships did not answer. They just kept coming closer. Jake grabbed the emergency communicator and sent a message to Earth Command. "This is New Haven Colony. We have 17 unknown alien warships approaching. Request immediate assistance. We are defenseless." The ships stopped just outside the planet's atmosphere. They hung there like deadly jewels against the black of space. Jake could see smaller ships launching from their bellies. These looked like fighters or bombers heading straight for the colony. "All civilians to the emergency shelters," Jake announced over the colony-wide speaker system. "This is not a drill. Get to the shelters now." But Jake knew the shelters would not help. They were built to protect against storms and equipment failures. They were not designed to stop alien weapons. Still, he had to try something. His 40 Marines took positions around the most important buildings. They had plasma rifles and rocket launchers. Against 17 massive warships, it was like throwing rocks at a hurricane. But they were Marines, and they would fight anyway. The first alien fighter swooped low over the main farming dome. A beam of bright blue light shot from its belly. Where the beam touched the dome, the metal and plastic simply disappeared. People inside screamed as the building collapsed. Jake watched in horror as families he knew personally were crushed under tons of debris. "Open fire," he screamed into his radio. His Marines shot everything they had at the alien fighters. A few plasma bolts hit their targets, but the beams bounced off like they were hitting mirrors. The alien ships had some kind of shields that made human weapons useless. More beams rained down from the sky. The power plant exploded in a ball of orange fire. The water treatment facility melted like ice cream. The school where 300 children had been learning about Earth history was cut in half by a beam so bright it hurt to look at. Jake tried calling Earth Command again. "New Haven to Earth Command. We are under attack. 17 alien warships are destroying the colony. We need help now. Our weapons cannot hurt them." Static answered him. The aliens had probably destroyed the communication array too. Amy Foster was crying as she watched the destruction on her screens. "Sir, what do we do? We cannot stop them." Jake put his hand on her shoulder. "We keep fighting. We make them pay for every life they take." But even as he said it, Jake knew it was hopeless. The alien ships were systematically destroying everything. They were not trying to capture anything or take prisoners. This was pure destruction for its own sake. The hospital disappeared under a concentrated barrage of blue beams. Dr. Helen Price had been working there trying to treat the first wave of casualties. Now she was gone along with 200 patients and staff. The residential areas burned as the alien fighters made pass after pass. Jake watched his world die. These people had come to New Haven looking for peace and safety. They had built farms and schools and homes. They had children and dreams and hopes for the future. Now alien beings who had never met them were killing them all. The defense station shook as alien beams hit the lower levels. Jake knew they would all be dead soon. He grabbed the emergency recorder and spoke quickly. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of New Haven Colony. Unknown alien race has attacked without warning or provocation. They have destroyed our entire colony. Over 2 million civilians are dead or dying. We could not defend ourselves. Tell Earth what happened here. Make them pay for this. Remember us." He set the recorder to automatic transmission and hoped it would reach Earth someday. The alien beams were getting closer. Amy had stopped crying and was now loading her rifle with a look of determination on her face. "It has been an honor serving with you, sir," she said. Jake smiled grimly. "The honor was mine, Lieutenant." The ceiling above them turned white-hot and began to melt. Jake and Amy raised their weapons toward the opening. They would die fighting like Marines should. 6 hours after it began, the attack was over. New Haven. Colony was gone. Every building had been reduced to smoking rubble. Every person had been killed. The beautiful green fields were burned black. The crystal ships hung in space for a few more minutes as if admiring their work. Then they turned and jumped back into hyperspace. The automated beacon Jake had launched drifted through space carrying its terrible message. It would take 3 days to reach the nearest human outpost. By then the aliens would be long gone and New Haven would be just a memory. Admiral Kate Sullivan was drinking her morning coffee when the emergency alarm sounded throughout the UES Vengeance. She had been reading reports from the outer colonies when her communications officer, Lieutenant Ryan Brooks, burst into her cabin. "Admiral, we have received an automated distress beacon from New Haven Colony," he said. His face was pale and his hands were shaking. "You need to hear this right away." Kate followed him to the bridge. The crew was already at their stations, but something felt wrong. Everyone was too quiet. The normal chatter and activity had stopped. Her communications officer played the message from Jake Morrison. Kate listened to the recording 3 times before the full meaning hit her. New Haven Colony was gone. Over 2 million people had been murdered by unknown aliens. Her younger brother Danny had lived there with his wife and 2 children. She had visited them just 6 months ago. "Send this message directly to Earth Command," she ordered. "Priority Alpha encryption. Then set course for Earth at maximum speed." The journey back to Earth took 4 days. Kate spent most of that time in her cabin staring at pictures of her brother's family. Little Amy Sullivan had just turned 8 years old. She had wanted to be a pilot like her Aunt Kate. Now she was dead along with everyone else Kate had known. On New Haven. Earth's Parliament called an emergency session as soon as the news arrived. President Linda Hayes stood before the assembled representatives from dozens of human colonies. The chamber was packed with senators and delegates who had traveled from across human space. "Fellow humans," the president began. "Yesterday we learned that our species is no longer alone in the universe. We also learned that not all alien races come in peace. New Haven Colony has been completely destroyed by unknown attackers. Over 2 million of our brothers and sisters are dead." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some called for immediate retaliation. Others demanded better defenses for the remaining colonies. A few suggested trying to negotiate with the aliens. President Hayes raised her hand for silence. "I am authorizing the largest military buildup in human history," she announced. "Admiral Kate Sullivan will command our response. She has full authority to recruit personnel and requisition ships from every human world." Kate stood when her name was called. She looked out at the faces of humanity's leaders and saw fear mixed with determination. These people wanted justice for New Haven, but they also wanted to protect their own families. "We will find whoever did this," Kate said simply, "and we will make them pay." The recruitment drives began immediately. On every human world, the call went out for volunteers. Veterans who had retired years ago reported for duty. Fresh academy graduates begged to be assigned to combat units. Factory workers quit their jobs to join the fleet. Even civilians with no military training signed up to serve in support roles. Commander Ryan Brooks became Kate's chief tactical officer. He was young but brilliant at military strategy. During the border conflicts with space pirates, he had developed new fighting techniques that saved hundreds of lives. Now he would need to figure out how to fight an enemy with superior technology. Chief Engineer Lisa Chang joined the team to oversee ship modifications. Every available vessel was being converted for combat duty. Cargo ships received armor plating and weapons. Passenger liners became troop transports. Even mining vessels were fitted with missile launchers. The most promising volunteers were assigned to new fast attack squadrons. Captain Paul Martinez took command of a group of modified patrol boats. These small ships could not match alien firepower, but they were fast and hard to hit. Paul had been a test pilot before the war and knew how to push ships beyond their design limits. Dr. Helen Price led the research team studying what little evidence they had of alien technology. The automated sensors at New Haven had recorded some data before being destroyed. Helen and her team worked around the clock analyzing energy signatures and weapon patterns. Their ships used some kind of energy shield. Helen reported to Kate, "Our weapons bounced off without doing any damage, but every shield has weaknesses. We just need to find them." Training camps were established on 12 different worlds. Sergeant Danny White came out of retirement to train the new recruits. He had fought in every major conflict of the past 20 years and knew how to turn civilians into soldiers quickly. "Most of you have never been in a real fight," he told a group of recruits. "But you have something the enemy does not expect. You are fighting for your families and your homes. That makes you dangerous." The industrial capacity of human space turned toward military production. Factories that had built farming equipment now manufactured rifles. Shipyards that had constructed cargo vessels started building warships. Every human world contributed whatever they could to the war effort. Lieutenant Amy Foster had survived the attack on New Haven by pure luck. She had been visiting her sister on a nearby space station when the aliens struck. Now she volunteered to join the intelligence division. She knew New Haven better than anyone and could provide valuable information about the attack. "They destroyed everything systematically," she told Kate during a briefing. "This was not random violence. They had a plan and they executed it perfectly. They wanted to kill everyone and leave nothing standing." Captain Alex Turner volunteered to lead reconnaissance missions into unknown space. His ship was one of the few equipped with experimental stealth technology. If they were going to fight these aliens, they needed to learn more about them first. The first volunteers completed basic training in just 6 weeks. They were not as skilled as professional soldiers, but they made up for it with determination. Every one of them had lost friends or family at New Haven. They all wanted revenge. Kate assembled her senior staff to plan their strategy. They had managed to gather over 300 ships of various sizes. It was an impressive force by human standards, but they still did not know what they were up against. "We cannot match them ship for ship," Ryan Brooks explained. "But we can be smarter. We can hit them where they do not expect it. We can make them afraid to attack human colonies." Dr. Price had made some progress analyzing the alien technology. "Their energy shields seem to draw power from their main engines," she reported. "If we could overload them somehow, we might be able to get through." The memorial service for New Haven was held on Earth. Over 1 billion people watched as President Hayes dedicated a monument to the victims. Kate spoke at the ceremony representing the military response. "They thought we would be easy targets," she said. "They thought they could murder our people without consequences. They were wrong. We are coming for them, and we will not stop until justice is done." As the ceremony ended, Kate received word that the first reconnaissance mission was ready to launch. Captain Turner and his stealth ship would begin searching for the aliens who had destroyed New Haven. The hunt was about to begin. Kate looked up at the stars and thought about her brother's family. Somewhere out there were the beings who had killed them. Soon those beings would learn what it meant to make humanity angry. They had made their first and last mistake. Captain Alex Turner guided his stealth ship through the darkness between stars. The UES Shadow had been designed for reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines. Its hull was covered with materials that absorbed sensor beams and its engines ran, almost silently. Alex had volunteered for this mission knowing he might never come home. 3 months had passed since the destruction of New Haven Colony. Human forces were still gathering and training, but Alex could not wait. Every day that passed meant the aliens might attack another colony. He needed to find them before they struck again. His ship carried the most advanced sensors humanity could build. Dr. Helen Price had modified them to detect the energy signatures recorded during the New Haven attack. If the aliens were out there, Alex would find them. The first system he investigated showed signs of recent battle. Debris floated in space around a dead planet. Alex recognized some of the wreckage as belonging to an unknown alien species. Whoever had lived here was gone now. Only twisted metal and frozen corpses remained. Another victim, Alex said to himself as he recorded the scene. These aliens were not just targeting humans. They were destroying anyone they encountered. The second system told a similar story. A thriving civilization had been reduced to ruins. The attackers had been thorough and methodical. Nothing lived here anymore. Alex began to understand that humanity was facing an enemy that killed for pleasure. On the fourth day, Alex found what he was looking for. His sensors detected energy readings that matched the New Haven attack. A small fleet of crystal ships was orbiting a gas giant in an uninhabited system. They seemed to be refueling or conducting repairs. Alex counted 7 ships, including one that was much larger than the others. He stayed hidden in the shadow of an asteroid and watched them work. The aliens moved with mechanical precision as they transferred resources between vessels. They showed no emotion or individuality that Alex could detect. His long-range cameras captured detailed images of the alien ships. They were even more beautiful and terrifying up close. The crystal hulls seemed to contain their own light sources. Energy flowed through transparent channels like blood through veins. These beings had mastered technologies that humans barely understood. Alex transmitted his findings back to Admiral Sullivan using a coded burst transmission. Then he settled in to watch and learn. The aliens spent 2 days at the gas giant before moving on. Alex followed them at a safe distance. The alien fleet traveled to a system that contained several inhabited worlds. Alex watched in horror as they repeated the same pattern they had used at New Haven. The first planet was home to a reptilian species that had just achieved spaceflight. The aliens destroyed their cities and orbital stations without warning or negotiation. Alex wanted to help, but his single ship could do nothing against 7 alien warships. He could only watch and record as another peaceful civilization was wiped out. The aliens were systematic in their destruction. They left nothing alive and took no prisoners. After the massacre, the alien fleet moved on to their next target. Alex continued following them and discovered they were part of a much larger force. The 7 ships joined up with dozens of others at a massive space station hidden in an asteroid field. The station was clearly a military base. Alex counted over 50 warships of various sizes along with supply vessels and support craft. He had found the aliens' main staging area for attacks in this region of space. Alex spent a week observing the base and learning about alien operations. He identified several different ship types, including the massive dreadnoughts that could destroy entire planets. He also discovered that the aliens had a rigid hierarchy based on ship size and crystal coloration. The most important discovery came when Alex intercepted alien communications. His computer systems had been programmed with fragments of alien language captured during the New Haven attack. After days of analysis, Alex managed to translate some basic terms. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire. They viewed all other species as inferior beings that deserved only death. Their attacks were not motivated by resources or territory. They killed because they believed it was their right as the superior race. Alex also learned that the Empire controlled dozens of star systems. The base he was watching was just one of many scattered across their territory. Humanity was facing an enemy that was vast and well organized. But Alex also discovered something that gave him hope. The Zephyrians had grown overconfident after their easy victories. Their security was sloppy and their tactics were predictable. They assumed all other species would be as helpless as their previous victims. Admiral Sullivan received Alex's reports with mixed emotions. The intelligence was valuable, but the scale of the threat was overwhelming. The Zephyrians had hundreds of ships and the technology to destroy entire worlds. Human forces seemed insignificant by comparison. "We cannot match them in direct combat," Commander Ryan Brooks said after reviewing the data. "But we can use their overconfidence against them. They do not expect effective resistance." Dr. Helen Price studied the technical data Alex had gathered. The alien ships were incredibly advanced, but they were not perfect. She found several potential weaknesses that human forces might be able to exploit. Their shields are powerful, but they require enormous amounts of energy, she explained. If we could force them to overload their power systems, we might be able to penetrate their defenses. Kate decided to authorize limited offensive operations. Small human forces would attack isolated Zephyrian targets to test their capabilities and gather more intelligence. These missions would be extremely dangerous but necessary. Captain Paul Martinez volunteered to lead the first attack. His squadron of fast attack boats had been training for hit-and-run tactics. They would strike at a Zephyrian supply convoy and escape before reinforcements could arrive. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Davis assembled a team of Marines equipped with experimental weapons. If human ships could disable a Zephyrian vessel, his troops would board it and capture prisoners for interrogation. The first attack took place in the Vega system, where Alex had spotted a Zephyrian mining operation. Paul's squadron approached under cover of an asteroid field and struck without warning. Their missiles damaged 2 alien ships before the Zephyrians could react. The alien return fire was devastating, but Paul's pilots were ready for it. They used the asteroids for cover and kept moving at high speed. The Zephyrians had trouble tracking such small, fast targets. One alien ship was disabled when its power systems overloaded. Sam's Marines stormed aboard and found 40 human prisoners in the cargo hold. These were colonists from New Haven, who had been captured before the final destruction. The rescued prisoners provided crucial information about Zephyrian operations. They had been used as slave labor in alien mines and had observed enemy procedures firsthand. More importantly, they confirmed that the Zephyrians had never faced organized resistance before. "They are confused by our tactics," one prisoner reported. "They keep talking about ghost ships and shadow warriors. They do not understand how humans can fight back." Kate realized that humanity's greatest advantage was not superior technology or numbers. It was their ability to adapt and improvise under pressure. The Zephyrians had become dependent on their technological superiority and did not know how to fight a creative enemy. Alex continued his reconnaissance missions and discovered more Zephyrian bases. Each success gave human forces better intelligence about enemy capabilities and weaknesses. The hunt was just beginning, but already the aliens were starting to look over their shoulders. The war for humanity's survival had begun. 6 months after the first reconnaissance missions, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching her fleet prepare for the largest battle in human history. Intelligence reports had located the main Zephyrian command center for their attacks on human space. Admiral Caxthor of the Imperial Fleet had established his headquarters on a massive space station in the Proxima Centauri system. Kate had spent weeks planning this assault. The target was heavily defended by dozens of Zephyrian warships, and the station itself was protected by powerful shields. But Dr. Helen Price had finally solved the mystery of alien defensive technology. Their shields work by creating an energy field that bends space around their ships, Helen explained during the final briefing. But this field requires constant power input from multiple generators. If we can overload those generators simultaneously, the entire shield network will collapse. Commander Ryan Brooks had developed the tactical plan based on Helen's research. 3 separate attack groups would approach the station from different directions. The main force would engage the defending fleet while stealth ships carrying electromagnetic pulse weapons would target the shield generators. Captain Paul Martinez commanded Battle Group 7, which included 8 of humanity's newest battlecruisers. These ships had been built using technology captured from previous raids on Zephyrian outposts. They were not as advanced as alien vessels, but they were tough and carried devastating weapons. Captain Nancy Williams led the stealth squadron that would deliver the killing blow. Her ships had been specially modified with Dr. Price's experimental weapons. The electromagnetic pulse devices could theoretically overload Zephyrian power systems, but they had never been tested in real combat. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Davis would lead the boarding parties if the assault succeeded. His Marines had been training for 6 months to fight inside alien ships. They carried weapons designed to work in the strange environments found aboard Zephyrian vessels. The human fleet consisted of 60 ships, including support vessels and transports. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, Every ship had been crewed by volunteers who remembered New Haven Colony and wanted revenge. Kate gave the final order, and the fleet jumped into hyperspace. The journey to Proxima Centauri would take 18 hours. During that time, every crew member would be thinking about the families and friends they might never see again. The Zephyrian command station was exactly where intelligence reports had placed it. The massive structure looked like a crystal cathedral floating in space. It was surrounded by 30 warships arranged in defensive formations. Admiral Caxthor clearly felt secure in his fortress. Kate's sensors detected the alien ships long before they noticed the approaching human fleet. The Zephyrians had grown careless after months of easy victories. Their patrols were predictable, and their communications were not encrypted. "All ships prepare for battle," Kate announced. "Remember, New Haven. Make them pay for every life they took." Battle Group 7 emerged from hyperspace first and immediately came under fire from the Zephyrian defenders. Blue energy beams lanced through space as the aliens opened their attack. Several human ships took damage, but their improved armor held against the assault. Paul Martinez ordered his ships to return fire with their new kinetic weapons. These were essentially giant railguns that fired dense projectiles at incredible speeds. The first salvo caught the Zephyrians completely off guard. 3 alien ships exploded as the kinetic rounds punched through their hulls. The Zephyrians had never faced weapons that ignored their energy shields. Their defensive formations began to break apart as confusion spread through their ranks. Captain Williams used the chaos to move her stealth ships into position. The electromagnetic pulse weapons needed to be fired from close range to be effective. Her pilots guided their vessels through the battle zone while avoiding detection by both sides. The space around the command station became a maze of energy beams and exploding ships. Human vessels were smaller and faster than their alien opponents, but the Zephyrians had superior firepower. For every alien ship destroyed, 2 human vessels were lost. Kate watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Vengeance. She could see that her forces were taking heavy casualties, but they were also inflicting damage on an enemy that had seemed invincible. The tide of war was finally turning. "Stealth squadron in position," Nancy Williams reported. "Ready to fire, on your command." Kate waited until the maximum number of Zephyrian ships were clustered around the station. Then she gave the order that would decide the battle. "Fire all weapons." 12 electromagnetic pulse devices fired simultaneously at the command station's shield generators. The invisible energy waves struck their targets within seconds of each other. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the station's shields began to flicker. The energy field that had protected the massive structure for years started to collapse as its generators overloaded. Sparks flew from crystal conduits as power systems throughout the station went critical. "Shields are down," Ryan Brooks announced. "The station is defenseless." Kate ordered every ship in the fleet to target the command station. Kinetic rounds and energy beams converged on the crystal structure from dozens of directions. The beautiful alien architecture shattered like glass under the concentrated assault. Admiral Caxthor tried to coordinate a final defense, but human boarding parties were already fighting their way through his ship. Sam Davis led the assault on the command center where the alien admiral was making his last stand. The Zephyrian commander was unlike anything humans had encountered before. He stood over 8 feet tall, and his crystalline body glowed with internal light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like breaking glass. "You cannot defeat the Empire," he said in broken human language. "We are superior to all lesser species." Sam raised his plasma rifle and looked the alien in what passed for eyes. "Tell that to the people of New Haven." The shot that killed Admiral Caxthor also marked the end of Zephyrian expansion into human space. With their command center destroyed, and their fleet scattered, the aliens would need months to reorganize their forces. But Kate knew this was only the beginning. The Zephyrian Empire controlled dozens of star systems and had hundreds of ships. This victory would give humanity time to prepare for the larger war that was coming. As the battle ended, Kate walked through the corridors of her ship and saw the faces of her crew. They were exhausted, and many were wounded. But they were also proud. For the first time since New Haven, humanity had struck back at their enemies. The rescued prisoners from the command station included humans who had been captured during other alien raids. These people had been used as slaves and test subjects, but they had survived. Their testimony would provide valuable intelligence for future operations. Kate established a base in the Proxima Centauri system using the captured alien facilities. Human engineers began studying Zephyrian technology, while intelligence officers interrogated prisoners. Every piece of information would be useful in the battles ahead. The news of victory spread throughout human space faster than any official announcement. Colonies that had been preparing for evacuation instead began organizing support for the war effort. The industrial capacity of dozens of worlds turned toward military production. Kate received a message from Earth congratulating her forces on their success. But she also received new orders. The war was far from over, and humanity needed to press their advantage while the Zephyrians were confused and disorganized. The fleet began preparing for the next phase of operations. Captain Alex Turner had located several more Zephyrian bases that could be attacked while their defenses were weak. Each victory would bring humanity closer to their ultimate goal. Kate stood in her cabin looking at pictures of New Haven Colony. Before its destruction, children playing in green fields, families enjoying peaceful lives, all of them murdered by an enemy that saw other species as inferior. "We are coming for you," she said quietly. "All of you." 1 year after the battle at Proxima Centauri, Admiral Kate Sullivan commanded the largest fleet in human history. Over 200 ships from every human colony had gathered for the final assault on Zephyr Prime. The crystal ships that had once seemed invincible now fled when human forces appeared. The hunters had become the hunted. Captain Alex Turner had spent months mapping the approaches to the Zephyrian home system. His reconnaissance missions revealed that the enemy had pulled back most of their forces to defend their capital world. Over 100 alien warships guarded the planet, where 3 billion Zephyrians lived in crystal cities. Dr. Helen Price had used captured alien technology to develop weapons that seemed impossible just 1 year ago. Human ships now carried gravitational bombs that could crack planets and energy weapons that turned stars into weapons. The students had surpassed their teachers. The Zephyrians never expected to fight a defensive war, Commander Ryan Brooks explained during the final planning session. Their entire military doctrine is based on conquest. They do not know how to protect their own territory. The journey to Zephyr Prime took 3 weeks. During that time, every human ship received the same message from Kate. It was a recording of Jake Morrison's final transmission from New Haven Colony. Every crew member heard the voices of the dying as they called for Earth to remember them. The Zephyrian home system was the most heavily defended place in the galaxy. Automated weapons platforms floated in the asteroid belt. Energy fields strong enough to stop entire fleets protected the main shipping lanes. The planet itself was surrounded by defensive stations that could destroy approaching ships. But Ryan Brooks had studied Zephyrian tactics for over a year. He understood their weaknesses better than they understood them themselves. The aliens relied too heavily on their technology and not enough on creative thinking. They could not adapt when their enemies used unexpected strategies. Kate divided her fleet into 3 attack groups. The first would engage the outer defenses and draw attention away from the real targets. The second would eliminate the defensive stations around Zephyr Prime. The third would deliver the final blow that would end the Zephyrian Empire forever. Captain Paul Martinez led the assault on the asteroid belt defenses. His ships had been equipped with mining charges captured from Zephyrian operations. These devices could turn asteroids into massive bombs that would overwhelm enemy sensors and defensive systems. The first explosions lit up space like new stars being born. Hundreds of asteroids detonated simultaneously as human forces triggered their improvised weapons. The Zephyrian defense network had been designed to stop ships not flying mountains of rock and metal. Captain Nancy Williams commanded the stealth squadron that infiltrated the planet's defensive perimeter. Her ships carried the most devastating weapons in the human arsenal. Dr. Price had developed bombs that could destabilize the energy cores of Zephyrian space stations. The planetary defenses collapsed within hours as station after station exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The Zephyrians had never imagined that their own technology could be turned against them so effectively. Their energy shields became bombs that destroyed everything they were meant to protect. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Davis led the final assault on the planet's surface. His target was not the civilian population, but the military command centers that controlled the Zephyrian fleet. Every alien warship in the system was being directed from bunkers deep beneath the crystal cities. The bombardment of military targets began at dawn on Zephyr Prime. Human kinetic weapons fell from orbit like metal, rain. Each projectile carried enough energy to level city blocks. The beautiful crystal architecture that had taken centuries to build was reduced to glittering dust in hours. The Zephyrian Emperor, known as the Prime Consciousness, tried to coordinate a final defense from his palace in the capital city. But human forces had learned to jam alien communications, and his orders never reached his scattered fleets. Kate watched the destruction from her command ship and felt no satisfaction. This was not revenge but justice. The Zephyrians had murdered billions of innocent beings across dozens of star systems. They had earned their fate through their own cruelty and arrogance. The Prime Consciousness sent a desperate transmission offering unconditional surrender when human forces reached orbital bombardment range of his palace. Kate's response was broadcast to every ship in both fleets. "You destroyed New Haven Colony without warning," she said. "You murdered 2.3 million innocent people. You have killed entire civilizations for no reason other than your belief that you are superior. Surrender is no longer an option." The final bombardment lasted 3 days. Every military installation on Zephyr Prime was systematically destroyed. The orbital shipyards where alien warships were built became clouds of debris. The training academies, where young Zephyrians learned to kill other species, were turned into craters. But Kate was careful to avoid civilian targets. Human forces had not come to commit genocide, but to eliminate a military threat. The crystal cities where ordinary Zephyrians lived remained untouched. Children and families who had never participated in the Empire's expansion were spared. The Zephyrian fleet tried one final desperate attack as their homeworld burned beneath them, but their ships were outnumbered and outgunned by human forces that had learned from every previous battle. The aliens who had once seemed invincible were swept from space like leaves in a storm. Captain Alex Turner captured the last Zephyrian admiral when his ship was disabled by electromagnetic pulse weapons. The alien commander was brought before Kate to witness the end of his empire's military power. "Your species will never threaten others again," Kate told him. "Your warships are destroyed. Your weapons factories are gone. Your military academies are rubble. You will live, but you will never again make the mistake of believing you are superior to other forms of life." The war ended not with a single climactic battle, but with the gradual collapse of Zephyrian resistance throughout their territory. Human forces established monitoring stations in every former enemy system. The aliens were forbidden from building warships or developing weapons technology. Kate retired to a small colony world after the war, but she never forgot the weight of command during humanity's first interstellar conflict. In her final log entry, she reflected on what the war had taught her about her own species. "We learned that humans are not the strongest race in the galaxy," she wrote. "We are not the most advanced or the most numerous, but we are the most dangerous when someone threatens our families." The Zephyrians learned this lesson too late to save themselves. A memorial was built in orbit around the ruins of New Haven Colony. It bore the names of every person who had died in the massacre, along with those who had fallen in the war that followed. Below the names was an inscription that became humanity's promise to the galaxy. "They will not be forgotten. Their sacrifice united humanity. Their memory drives us to the stars." The children who grew up hearing stories of New Haven and the Armada of Wrath carried those lessons with them as humanity expanded into the galaxy. Other alien species had heard the whispered tales of what happened to the Zephyrian Empire. They approached humanity with caution and respect rather than arrogance. Kate lived long enough to see humanity become one of the most respected powers in the galaxy, not because they were the strongest or most advanced, but because other species knew what would happen if they threatened human families. The lesson of New Haven had been learned by everyone. On quiet evenings, Kate would sit on her porch and look up at the stars. Somewhere among those lights were the worlds where her brothers' family had lived and died. Their deaths had changed the course of human history and ensured that no other families would suffer the same fate. The galaxy was a safer place because humanity had proven they would fight for justice. The Zephyrians had made their first and final mistake when they destroyed New Haven Colony. They had awakened something in humanity that would never sleep again.